Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Social Inclusion, an Opportunity for Principal Leadership. I'm John Norrie from the Professional Development Department at NASSP, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Social Inclusion, an Opportunity for Principal Leadership. I'm John Norrie from the Professional Development Department at NASSP, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. The presenters today are Steve Beebe, Principal, Cactus Shadows High School, Arizona; Bill Schreiber, Principal, Granite Falls Middle School, North Carolina; Barbara Oswald, Director of Youth Initiatives and Programs, Special Olympics, South Carolina; and Terry Pickeral, Senior Education Consultant, Special Olympics Project Unify, Washington. With that, I'd like to turn today's program over to Terry.
Thank you, John. I have the privilege of being joined by three great leaders and advocates for social inclusion. I got to know Steve a couple of years ago when I visited his school and saw the pervasiveness of social inclusion on his campus. Bill I met last year as he was helping us on a social inclusion and school climate national research project. I just loved his spirit and eagerness to continuously improve the work they're doing at his school. And I've known Barbara for 7 years as she works in rural and suburban and urban schools in South Carolina and provides professional development and technical assistance, and also does statewide activities for young people and adults in South Carolina. So it's my privilege to be part of this team that's excellent in terms of social inclusion.
Terry, do you want to review the agenda for us?
Okay. Thanks, John. Along with my colleagues today, what we're going to do is share with you how principals lead their schools to integrate and sustain social inclusion. We'll begin by expressing the definition of social inclusion. The principals and Barbara will be giving some examples. We'll be looking at a Special Olympics Project Unify framework, and then we'll be discussing strategies, lessons learned, and implications for the principals. We'll also have within the webinar a couple of polls that each of you can respond to and get our reactions to that. There'll also be questions and responses at the end, as well as a set of resources. So John, if you want to advance to the social inclusion slides.
Before I do that, I just want to say that I forgot to mention that we do have somebody on hold for technical problems. So if you have any difficulty with signing in or seeing the slides throughout the webinar, you can call Rich. His number is 703-860-7259. And if you're tweeting, use hashtag NASSP webinar, and we will have this posted on our website within 48 hours. So let's go on to the next slide. Terry?
Okay. So many of us are familiar with the concept of physical inclusion, which ensures that all students have equitable access to facilities and services and activities. Correspondingly, we're familiar with academic inclusion, which engages diverse students in teaching and learning processes of the general education classroom, focusing on equitable access and equitable academic opportunities. Today, we're going to focus on social inclusion, which ensures that all students have the opportunity for the development of authentic friendships with a broad range of their peers in a variety of settings, where students assume leadership roles to positively change their school and community. What's really important in terms of social inclusion is that it's intentional, that it's consistent, and it's comprehensive, that it's not just for some students, sometimes in some grades, in some classes, in some activities, but in fact that it's integrated and sustained and becomes part of the school's DNA. To further talk about or to show how young people think about social inclusion, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Barbara Oswald, to talk about and show how students feel and think about social inclusion. Barbara?
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, it's one thing to talk through a definition of the technicalities of social inclusion, but it's another thing to dig deeper and explore what social inclusion really looks like and feels like for our youth. So in South Carolina, we decided to turn to our experts on social inclusion, which are our youth leaders from 5 different Project Unify high schools across South Carolina. These students were an inclusive group, meaning that there were youth with and without intellectual disabilities involved. And we had a leadership retreat for this group. And we asked them the questions, what does social inclusion look like and what does social inclusion feel like? And as you can see in their responses on these posters, they had a very easy time articulating exactly what social inclusion meant for them and how it felt within their school. Interestingly enough, we did the same exercise with a group of educators at a professional development opportunity, and they had a much more difficult time articulating the answers to these questions. And it really solidified the idea to us that we need a combination of not only education leaders really taking on the social inclusion movement, but we need those youth leaders there to be with us to take the helm there. So speaking of education leaders and youth leaders, I would like to now turn it over to Steve to share his leadership experiences at Cactus Shadow High School. Steve?
Well, thank you, Barbara. And as a high school principal, it's always a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you about your school and the things that you do for kids, on your campus. At Cactus Shadows High School, we are a Project Unify school. We have been for about 6 years running. And so at our school, for our athletes in Special Olympics Unified Sports, we offer unified golf, unified cheer, unified tennis, and unified track to our athletes, and their partners. Also, as far as the Unified Sports Curriculum, we have adapted that for our adaptive PE. And so in our school this year, every athlete has a partner. So we have equal partners for the number of athletes, and we've incorporated the Unified Sports Curriculum into our curriculum, and we're working with Special Olympics to improve the curriculum so that it aligns with the standards to become a part of the course catalog. As far as clubs and activities that we offer in the unified setting and social inclusion for our students, we have the Youth Activation, which is the leadership program on our campus. We have had Best Buddies, and as a part of Best Buddies, we do a couple of socials every year. We do a Best Buddies prom where partners come, and it's a really neat event. We have the R Word campaign, and we do that in conjunction with our student council. And that has been a campaign that's been ongoing on Cactus Shadows campus even before my time here 6 years ago. And then we have another program called Fans in the Stands to support our athletes, where we get students out to support our athletes in their competitions. The Pledge and Plunge, which raises funds for the different activities we want to do. And then Healthy Leap, which is the research for healthy living. And so those are all different activities that we offer both, for all students on our campus and to be involved with. But social inclusion really starts, with the entire student body. And so on this next slide, you can see our Falcon Oath. This is something we did this year. And it says, as a falcon in the nest, I take pride in myself, others, and my community by being a selfless leader, striving for academic integrity, and respecting others in everything we do. And there's a picture there of some of our partners and our athletes, but this is an oath that was offered to every single student on our campus. And I would say about 80% of this campus has taken this oath and signed an oath, and this banner is now up in our gym with the oath reminding them of the promise that we've made as individuals to fulfill what it means to be a Cactus Shadows Falcon. Another thing that we have done that's had a huge impact on our campus is our BLT group, which is the Breakout leadership team. And these are student leaders who are hand-selected that actually lead our school. And so they have been chosen for a purpose. And why they may not be the president of a club, they may not be the captain of the football team, they are leaders on this campus in one way or another that kids look up to them. And so we brought that group together, and they are the ones that were responsible for the oath you just saw. And they really do give us a lot of feedback and help us guide what we do. Their mission is to empower students to make decisions and to make a difference in their school through their own individual leadership. And this program has been active for 2 years on our campus now and has really made an impact on the entire campus. As far as our student leadership goes, I often talk to people about student council at Cactus Shadows, and my best definition is you can take just about any student council on any high school, any campus, anywhere, and put it on steroids, and that would be what we offer. We are members of both the Arizona and National Student Council organizations. In our student council, you don't have to be an elected official to be part of student council. And we have over 150 students who are involved in student council on our campus, and they are the ones who put on, organize, and run just about everything we do for our campus. This week is our homecoming week, and these kids are working hard to make this week exciting all week long and all of our events for our students. And it's just a great partnership and great student leaders. They have, for the last 2 years, put on a district leadership day in our district. And so we're a small 7-school district, but they do a training once a year where we bring all the leaders from our elementary schools and our middle schools for their student councils, and they teach them how to lead and go through what we do at Cactus Shadows and help them to take leadership skills back to their schools and take some of the things we're doing at Cactus Shadows back to their schools. And it really benefits us because these kids will continue to be leaders as they roll up into Cactus Shadows. This year we were also asked to do a regional leadership forum where we provided leadership to high schools across northern Arizona. And so we had about 900 extra students on our campus this year where our student council taught these students how to be leaders and how to bring these activities and events to their school. So it was really, really powerful and something that we were very proud to be a part of. And we are also a PBIS school, and so the sign here that you see the picture of is our acronym, is what guides us on our campus every day. And we were a PBIS school before this year, but this year we've taken a step back and we've really taken the concepts of PBIS and we've personalized it. And so this is what we live by, is what it means to have Falcon Pride. And these signs are around campus. They're in our athletic facilities. There's posters in every classroom. They're in offices. And this is the creed that guides both the faculty and the students at our school. Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, or PBIS, is a well-known program, and it's been very effective. We are in our 4th year of having it on our campus, and it has been tremendous in the impact that it's had on both the school climate and culture that we have here. It was already very positive, but it is through the roof right now. We do what we call talent tokens, and so teachers and faculty members are giving students they're writing out things that they're doing and giving them recognition, and then we do monthly and weekly drawings. From those monthly drawings, every month I send a letter home to parents with a copy of the talent token their student had received to make sure parents are in the loop on the great things their kids are doing. We do Student of the Month activities where we do, teachers are able to select as many students as they'd like from their own classrooms, from around campus, and recognize them. And then probably the most powerful thing that I've ever been involved with the kids was our lip dub video that we created last year. So on the next slide, you'll see our lip dub video. For the lack of time in the presentation, I'm not going to click, but this will be archived, and I recommend that you come back and watch this when you can. But this video really highlights Cactus Shadows It really will give you a look into what we are all about. It'll show social inclusion at its best. And, you know, I think it's just really a great culminating activity to show all of the great experiences that we have with kids and what we do with kids on our campus. So I appreciate the time to share a little bit about my school with you, and now I'm going to pass things off to Bill from Granite Falls Middle School.
Hey, Steve, thanks so very much. Wonderful things going on at your high school, and we're very appreciative of the things that you're doing, because we have learned from our high school up here at South Caldwell High School. They started out with their Project Unify, and we saw many of the good things that were going on at South Caldwell High School, and we decided that we wanted to piggyback and learn from that. So a couple of years ago, we were invited down to a regional Project Unify organizational event, and after we went down there, things just took off for us, and we've been following in the same kind of footsteps that you guys are. The first picture you see right in front of you right now is a picture of a young gentleman. I'll call him Brent, and that philosophy, the not in our house philosophy, is something that we have adopted at Granite Falls Middle School, and it starts with the kids. And what we have done is we had a group of pretty motivated, popular students that were like, you know, we need to make this happen on a larger scale than just in one or two of us with friends. And one of my teachers has an autistic son, and it started with this young man who we were struggling to try and reach as a student, and these kids just adopted him as their student that they wanted to follow. And if you want to flip on to the next slide, it started with this, and then we started into Project Unify with 22 members back in 2011, and we now have 78 members this year. And our students participate in our Ban the R Word Week. Is probably the biggest thing that we do in the springtime, and we support winter and spring Special Olympics. And our EC children are present, visible, and part of our community everywhere in the school. Today happens to be a busy day for me. We're doing our homecoming today, and our middle school students were just out of pep rally just a few minutes ago. And the inclusive part of that is they were part of our pep rally, as they have been in the past. And there's not really, the piece that's important to me, it's not really a sympathy, it's a friendship that the students establish. And they're very willing to work with each other. Really important thing for us is the staff buy-in. Our parents obviously are always looking for somebody to help, but our staff, every one of our staff, from our custodian all the way up through all of our teaching staff, front office staff, everybody is willing to modify and participate at whatever level we can. We've done a polar plunge to support Project Unify. Our next slide, if you want to go to the next slide, shows the activities that we did at our anti-bullying fair. And if you take a look at the hands across Caldwell County, that was kind of our theme. Took first place down there. And our kids were all about supporting each other with that. Moving on to starting with our Special Olympics pep rally. This is probably one of my favorites. The one that we did today was not targeted at Special Olympics. It was just our pep rally for the end of the year homecoming. But our spring Special Olympics, we spend an entire week, like I said, with Ban the R Word, and then we work our way down, and every one of our students is involved in that. And we have at least 2 or 3 students assigned to each one of our exceptional children. If you go on to the next slide. This Stop Sarcasm, Not in Our House, Stop Teasing, is something that I thought, okay, this is a great idea, let's continue to do that. I will tell you, I had a student the other day at a football game come up to me and share with me that a gentleman had thrown a piece of popcorn into the pocket, a white gentleman had thrown it in the pocket of an African American. And this young lady came up to me and said this was bullying and wanted me to go address it, in which I did go over and address it, and thank goodness it was just 2 friends goofing off. But if you can think of a middle school 7th grade student having the guts to come up and recognize that bullying or something along those lines was happening, and she brought that to our attention, I think that speaks volumes for the success that we've had with Project Unify. I would just echo what Steve said. We've done many of the things that he has out there, the best buddies. We have students sit down at lunch every day with our students. We have leadership program in place. Fans in the stands. We had a student last year that supported our football team. that's the piece, getting people to buy in and let our students work those wonderful things. We had a young man named DJ Svoboda, which some of you may have heard of, who's a nationally recognized artist, come and be our motivational speaker to kick off the school year. And those are the kind of things that, that make things rock here at Granite Falls Middle School. Our climate survey was just top drawer, the fans in the stands. So I could continue with a few other things, but I feel like I would repeat what Steve already said. So I just want to go ahead and I'll turn it over to our next presenter, because I lost my sheet. Sorry, guys.
Hey, thanks, Bill. This is Terry again, and I think, speaking for all of us, that it's great to hear from Steve and from Bill in terms of the leadership they provide. And again, as I talked about earlier, this isn't something that happens some of the time and for some of the students in some of the classes, but this is something that's part of the DNA of the schools, and it's something that's implemented and sustained. So it means that there's quality practices as well as quality policies that that are adopted in the schools and ensure that every student has a safe place to come to every day and is engaged in an equitable way. I promised you earlier that we would have a couple of polls during the webinar. So this is the first poll. This is a chance you get to weigh in about your experiences. You've heard from Barbara about her interactions with students and adults. You've heard from Steve and Bill about their schools. So this is a chance for you to weigh in about your school. So it's a simple question. Does your school have a specific focus on social inclusion? And there's 4 responses, 4 options: yes, no, beginning to explore, and unsure. And I'm confident that the system's in place for everybody to vote in one of the 4 options here, and we'll give you about 30 seconds to do that, at which time the results will come up, and we'll proceed based on the results of the poll. Okay, John, I think we're ready when you are.
Okay, I'm not sure what everybody can see at this point on the screen, but what I'm looking at says that attendees viewing the poll, 24% of you said yes, our school does have a specific focus on social inclusion. 39% said no, and 33% said beginning to explore, with just 6% saying unsure.
Okay. Thank for all of you that voted, and as Bill was talking about, gave an honest reaction to the question. What we're going to do next, given your results, that 24 said yes and 39 said no and 33 said beginning to explore and 6 were unsure, is in the next part of the webinar, we're going to guide you with some frameworks, some implementation strategies, and some lessons learned from our panelists, so that if you're yes and want to enhance what you're doing, we think we'll have some insights for you. If you're no and have an interest in integrating social inclusion in your school, we think we'll have some lessons learned that will be helpful. And for those that are beginning, we hope that we'll be able to give some insights that will help you develop even deeper into sustaining social inclusion. And for those that are unsure, that we hope that, again, the lessons learned and strategies will give you a place to start and some ideas about who are the people in your schools to talk to about social inclusion. Thank you. We'll have another poll in a little while, but I'm going to turn it to Barbara right now and have her talk about some of the frameworks that we've talked about, and then share the strategies and lessons that she's learned along with our other colleagues. Barbara?
Thanks, Terry. Project Unify has been around now for 7 years. We're in our 8th year of programming, and we have developed a lot of strategies around it. The framework of Project Unify is pretty unique, and Project Unify truly is a strategy for schools and leaders to activate their youth, to engage their educators, and to promote school communities of acceptance and inclusion where all young people are agents of change. And this takes place through a combination of sports and education initiatives. And through these combinations, we are creating communities that really foster respect and dignity for all young people, not only those with intellectual disabilities, but Project Unify aims to change actions and attitudes. It's changing these perspectives across an entire campus where we see a real shift in school climate to become more social inclusive. And we're promoting social inclusion and a positive school climate, which really does adhere to all of the overall education initiatives that our education leaders and administrators are aiming to do. So what's it look like? If you look at a Project Unify school, what are the types of things that you're going to see? Well, again, the real key here is a combination. At a true Project Unify school, you aren't going to see just one of these characteristics. You're going to see a strong combination of them. And you may see unifying sports programs, youth leadership, opportunities for students to connect and lead these initiatives within their schools. Special Olympics is truly equipping and preparing school leaders to be able to address some of the major concerns that they're facing right now through the development of skills and relationships, through youth leadership, health, and unity. We are addressing things like unsafe and unsupportive school climates and bullying, as you heard from Steve and Bill. Special Olympics provides those lessons and activities that promote understanding of differences, tolerance, respect, and acceptance for all. We address the issue of unmotivated, disengaged students. Again, this is addressing the dropout prevention issue. We are engaging youth leaders that aren't always the ones who are the presidents of the student council or the captains of the football team. We are tapping into youth that often go unseen or falling through the cracks, and they find their voice and they find their power as advocates for each other and for others with intellectual disabilities. The absence of social inclusion, as we heard in the poll, is oftentimes just not something that has been tackled. This gives an administrator, this provides an entire school community with some sort of framework, a strategy of how do you tackle the idea of social inclusion. And once you see that social inclusion is not only about your students from special ed, it's really about making sure that every one of your students finds their place and feels connected to their school. And then a huge problem, red flag in our schools with our youth today, is obesity and the other health-related problems nationwide. And certainly Special Olympics Unified Sports promotes that active, fit lifestyle, healthy habits at an early age, getting those types of habits not only to any students, but to students with intellectual disabilities who face those issues at 2 to 3 times the rate of any other student. So in our 8th year in South Carolina here, we are excited to work with over 150 schools this year from 43 different school districts across our state. Last year we were able to engage 5,000 students with and without intellectual disabilities in inclusive sports programs. And we were able to reach 85,000 students across our state with this message of respect and acceptance for all. And as we have worked with all of these schools, we have really learned so many best practices of how to be effective within our schools within this framework. So we have developed some strategies that we're excited to share with you today. The first one is to create opportunities for meaningful inclusion, and the key word here is meaningful. The idea is that you cannot have one student without intellectual disabilities just coming in through a service volunteer opportunity and sitting next to someone with intellectual disabilities and feeling like they're serving. This is a situation where the relationship is being built, barriers are being broken. And one idea here is to create an environment that is most likely for creating a successful situation. And one way is reverse mainstreaming. Oftentimes with our population, along with the disabilities comes different anxieties, and many of our athletes get overwhelmed in certain social situations. So the idea of bringing the general ed population into a self-contained classroom to initiate that relationship building oftentimes creates an environment of success for social inclusion. Inclusive-related arts in special areas has been an excellent and very popular opportunity and environment for social inclusion, whether it's inclusive art, inclusive PE. Unified PE, as you heard from Steve, is one of our biggest initiatives across South Carolina and has had huge success. Inclusive student clubs and organizations, again with the Best Buddies and the Project Unify Partners Clubs, this provides an environment for athletes, for our special needs athletes and their unified partners, those kids from general education, to really hang out together and to lead projects and to develop plans for Project Unify programs in their school. Next slide. So our next strategy are the character development initiatives that really promote social inclusion within the school. The first bullet here that you see is connection through service. And there's a couple different facets to this. One is the idea that when we have our students with and without ID working together to serve their community, all barriers are down. They are able to not only build relationships in a team setting for themselves, but they show that to their entire community. They show it to all the other students within their school, and it really promotes that social inclusion throughout an area. Developing responsible global citizens. This is one of the primary focuses of our administrators and our education leaders within South Carolina. And what is appealing about Project Unify and social inclusion is the idea of kids recognizing the fact that they are one of a network. They are a part of a network of 150 Project Unify schools in South Carolina. They're a part of a network of Special Olympics programs that aren't only nationwide, but it's a global initiative. The idea of being productive and understanding how to work in diverse conditions is something that's a very strong appeal for our administrators as they're trying to develop a very strong workforce and global community within South Carolina. And then celebrating achievements with character. How often are kids celebrated for what they have accomplished character-wise as opposed to the #1 basketball player or the top student in the class? The idea of really of celebrating those moments where students with or without special needs have really excelled in leadership and have advocated for one another. Those are types of opportunities to really say we are a social inclusion school. We are a place where we celebrate character. Our next strategy is inclusive youth leadership, which we have kind of touched on, but the idea of truly having inclusive youth leadership within a school is very unique. And one thing it has to start with is a culture where inclusive language and equitable conversations are truly embraced. And I heard several times with Steve and Bill, they referred to their students with special needs as our students. And so often we would go into a school and you don't hear that. You hear those students, their students, and our students are the ones from the general education population. Those kind of barriers have to get broken down in order to allow students with and without special needs to truly lead a school and have equitable conversations, having the ability to know how to talk to someone who's a little bit different than you. Again, these are skills that our kids will take with them the rest of their lives. The opportunities to serve as leaders. How often are those students from special education given the opportunity to run for student council or to be an officer in a club? And then recognizing leadership skills in all students, and not all of those leadership skills are what we typically think as leadership skills. We have had athletes, special needs athletes, who are nonverbal. They have an amazing way of connecting with people without having to say anything, and they show their leadership abilities in their ability to connect with others. We have to kind of broaden our world in terms of what we recognize as a true leader to really promote inclusive youth leadership within our school. Next slide. Finally, the strategy that's probably the most important to truly be promoting an entire school climate of social inclusion is whole school engagement. We cannot just focus on the unified sports teams within the school or those kids who are involved in the inclusive Project Unify Club. We have to get that message of social inclusion, which is all about respecting and accepting your peers no matter how different they are, We have to reach the entire school. The collaborations between general ed and special ed, faculty and students are so important to really establish a framework where social inclusion is embedded throughout the school. We have situations where we have found some really unique collaborations. I know one high school here locally, the special education self-contained room is a profound and severe disability classroom, and they have paired up with the robotics club and their applied technologies class to create assistive technology for those athletes. And they have things like button-operated paintball gun and robots that have remote controls that are real simple for those athletes and students who don't have a lot of fine motor skills within their hands. They have connected in such a unique and awesome way. It was just such an example of collaborating where you normally would not see collaboration with some really high academic students and a profound and severe class of Special Olympics athletes. And the entire school embraces the event that they put on to showcase the assistive technology that they have created. So it's really about thinking outside the box and making sure that every person in the school is involved. So what have we learned, not only from our schools, but from the challenges that we have faced and that our schools and their leaders have faced? One thing that we have learned from working with school leaders is that social inclusion strategies have to be implemented with, not for, students with intellectual disabilities. This is something that we struggle with all the time. Some of my greatest education leaders and school leaders that I work with will still to this day think that they're supposed to find a group of general education students to lead an advocacy campaign for the students who have special needs. And the idea here is that with social inclusion, we need that inclusive youth leadership group to lead those activities side by side. This is not something that a student council does for the special ed department. It's very important to promote that inclusion at every level. Next is truly engaging all stakeholders. This is something that's true with any kind of school climate initiative. We need to not only look at our students, we have to look at our teachers, we have to look at our support staff. That might mean the bus driver, the cafeteria worker. We need to bring in the guidance office and administration. Everybody is a stakeholder in promoting social inclusion. We have to approach social inclusion checklists with honesty and accuracy. Do the research. We often promote for schools to create a social inclusion checklist, asking them things like, are students with intellectual disabilities recognized at awards banquets? Are they included in your pep rally? Are they sitting in the stands on Friday night at the football game? And their administrators really have to be honest, and they have to talk to people. They have to find out from firsthand from students with and without intellectual disabilities. They need to find out from their teachers, from their parents, really find out if they're being honest and getting an accurate look at what their school environment really is. And then walk the talk. This is about really developing a policy and a paradigm within your school that's going to support social inclusion in a sustainable fashion. One great example, we had two seventh graders come to a youth summit, and they learned how to look at the way your school is set up and find opportunities for social inclusion. And they went back and talked to their principal about creating an inclusive homeroom. All of the special ed students were in self-contained spaces during homeroom, and they recognized the fact that it didn't have to be that way. So within a week, the principal acted on it, and that homeroom is now completely inclusive. And that is a sustainable measure of social inclusion within that school that's very simple to carry on. And finally, it's continuous improvement. And this is something from our program level down to a school level. We have to constantly look at ways to improve the initiatives. And we face the challenge of constant turnover, but not only with faculty, but with students. We find these great youth leaders, we empower them to find their voice, and then they graduate. So we constantly are having to recruit new leaders and develop those skills in a new set of students. We learn from one another, and one strategy may or may not work for two different schools, but certainly can often tweak it and apply it in a really positive way. So as we have learned from so many of our schools, I would love to hear some more about the lessons learned from Steve and Bill. So Steve?
Well, I thank you for that, and I can tell you that I will concur with what you have just said. I think the biggest challenge or the biggest thing that we've learned is to let the kids be involved in the decision-making process, because so many of our kids, are the ones who they see the big picture and they see the benefit, and they already embrace all students on their campus. So through our Falcon Oath this year and some of the other things that we're doing, it's just really involving kids in the decision-making process, because they are so compassionate for each other.
Yeah, Barbara, I'd like to follow up on a couple comments that you made. Our students also take that whole school engagement, just as you described. One of the things that we did when I arrived here was to change the location of our classrooms and the support staff that supported our students with intellectual disabilities. And we actually moved those classrooms into the cores of our 8th, 6th, and 7th grade hallways. They're embedded with a counselor next to them. Our regular ed kids are welcome to walk in at any time, those that are Project Unify. And their leaders, they walk in regularly for breakfast. They'll come in at lunchtime. If a student is struggling, we have buddies that will pop in and come on in and help them out. And the other piece I really wanted to focus on was the verticality piece to help with our students that go from middle school to high school. And I say vertically because our students start here in middle school, and they continue that leadership into high school. So we kind of groom them for about 7 years, and they get hooked. We have kids that are on the homecoming court. We have 2 special needs girls that are on the homecoming court this year, and the leaders that start out in middle school are continuing that same process in high school. And I think that that's a really important aspect of what we're doing here. And lastly, the visibility in the community. Our students are part of our annual Christmas parade. They're at the football games, just like you said, and that's just the way to do it. You have to get the whole community involved. And we've been able to do that, and it sounds like that same thing is happening in South Carolina. I'm excited for you guys.
Thanks so much. That's, yeah, it does sound so familiar. Those are the moments that certainly make us smile, is when we see social inclusion just embedded in every facet of the school. And I can't tell you how it feels to walk into a school and it's during lunchtime, and the students with special needs are just sprinkled throughout the cafeteria, included at every table. That's kind of one of those moments, such a simple thing, but it says so much about a school. And when you start to have the homecoming courts and the homecoming queens, a young lady with Down syndrome is being crowned, you have a moment where you realize that a school has kind of hit a mark in terms of social inclusion. Thanks so much for the opportunity to share about Project Unify and how to promote social inclusion and implore some great social inclusion strategies in schools. We're excited to continue this movement of Project Unify. It's not a single project, as you could hear from Steve and Bill. It's a combination of activities and initiatives that are really effectively including all students in this very positive movement. Thanks so much, and please take these words and promote social inclusion within your school communities. So now I will turn it to John.
Thank you. Actually, this is Terry. I think John's going to turn it to me for the second poll. And as John pulls up the poll, I want to remind people that the first slide, one of the first slides we showed that defined social inclusion, we began by talking about physical and academic inclusion, and then social inclusion. And as the Venn diagram showed, these aren't isolated strategies. They're simultaneous strategies. So as Bill was talking about the space, where is it that students with intellectual disabilities reside during a school day? The closer to the core, the more that represents the academic and the social. So as you think about physical, academic, and social inclusion, think about them as a comprehensive set of strategies rather than let's do this, then let's do that, let's do something else. It's let's ensure that we're providing a safe place, academic opportunities, and social opportunities for all students. And we all know that that Barbara and Steve and Bill have overcome barriers as they've integrated social inclusion. So we want to give you a chance to think about at your school and in your circumstances. This is one you can select more than one. That we've heard consistently that among the barriers are a lack of understanding of social inclusion, a lack of school-wide shared vision, a lack of strategies and resources, and we wanted to offer just an option there to also click others. So if you could click one or more of these barriers that exist in your school, then I'll wait for John to give us the results, and then we'll go from there.
So far, we have about 39% of the attendees have voted, so we'll wait another few seconds to give people a chance to voice their opinions. Okay, at this point we're showing that 29% of those who have voted are expressing a lack of understanding of social inclusion being the barriers, one of the barriers that exist. A lack of school-wide shared vision, 53% have checked that box. And remember, people are voting for more than one here, so there may be maybe a school where both of those things are an issue. And 47% have said there's a lack of strategies and resources, while 22% have said other.
Right. Again, thank you for your honesty in terms of of your circumstances, and you wouldn't be on the webinar if you didn't have an interest in expanding or beginning social inclusion in your school. A couple of responses to those barriers and how you might want to begin to overcome them. One is that NASSP will archive this webinar, and it will be available for you to go back and share it with others in your school, in your community, among your students with and without intellectual disabilities, and get their insights and opportunities. Secondly is that one of the final slides that we'll be showing you are a set of resources that we would encourage you to go to, and those resources include strategies and evaluation data so that you can demonstrate to people that in fact it has not only stories to back up its importance and its impacts, but also data to show that it makes a difference in the lives of students with and without intellectual disabilities when they become friends, when they compete together, when they join teams, and when they work together, whether it be a homecoming activity or a classroom activity. You'll also see opportunities to engage with social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, to be able to share and to pose questions to people like Barbara and Steve and Bill. And one of the other things that Bill and Steve and Barbara mentioned was about all stakeholders, and it's really important to provide an opportunity that all stakeholders have a chance. As 53% of you said, a lack of school-wide shared vision, that one of the ways you build that vision is to include all the people so that they co-create the vision as opposed to asking them to buy in. So Barbara's point about bus drivers, clerical workers, cafeteria workers, custodial workers, and others, having them be part of establishing a school-wide shared vision is really critical. And in our resources, you'll see some of those stories, strategies, and additional data to help to make the case with others who are either unwilling or unable to support social inclusion. There's a next slide that we created. You've heard us mention several times about school climate, which is the quality and the character of a school. And I mentioned earlier that Bill was part of a national research project that we did last year looking at social inclusiveness in school climate. So John, if you could bring up the slide there on a socially inclusive school climate, I'm going to ask Barb to talk us through that. and then I'm going to turn it back to John at that time to ask any questions that have come from the participants in the audience.
Thanks, Terry. Yes, this slide really kind of sums up our ideas behind the socially inclusive school climate. The first bullet here says promote inclusion for all students, and I think it's important to emphasize the all students. By promoting inclusion of students with intellectual disabilities, we have found that we end up engaging the entire school, or you have the opportunity to engage the entire school, where all students feel a part of their school. Next is to promote social justice for all students. And this is taking social inclusion to a whole nother level. The ideas of the R-word campaigns and the respect promotions and the anti-bullying initiatives, those are really changing the social justice for their students, making sure that every student is treated with respect and has access to all activities within the school. And finally, promoting the engagement of all students. And as administrators, this is a prime concern. Whether they think of social inclusion or not, this is a prime concern, is making sure that their students are engaged and have the opportunity to excel both academically, socially, and personally. These characteristics are not only indicative of a socially inclusive school climate, but they are characteristics of a general positive school climate where every student is happy to go to school every day and feels like they're contributing to an entire school community and that they're connected to one another. So this is summing up our ideas behind socially inclusive school climates. And again, thanks a lot for the opportunity to share with you how Project Unify is addressing social inclusion within the schools that we've engaged so far. So I will now officially turn it to John.
Thank you very much. I had a little problem with the polls there, but I hope everybody was able to see that last slide. I have Barbara, Terry, Steve, and Bill open now for the Q&A piece on anyone who wants to jump in to answer. First, there's an echo, and Bill, I'm going to mute you because when I mute you, that echo stops. So I'll check with you from time to time and see if perhaps you want to add something in. But here's the first question. Lisa asks, would like to know more about a healthy leap. I'm fine taking this question offline if needed. And early in the presentation, I think, Barbara, you were talking about a healthy leap, but I might have the wrong person on that. Who can address that question for Lisa?
I think that may have been one of our principals, Bill, but
this is Steve. I can answer that question because that's something that we have.
Okay.
Basically, the Healthy Leap is a program through the Department of Health that supports research for healthy living, and so we have participated in that Cactus Shadows for 3 years in our district at the elementary, junior high, and high school. And it's an 8-week program that introduces a variety of health lessons which students respond to once the lesson is completed.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What are the most important first 3 steps to getting started in a school?
I would say the first 3 steps for us were for getting the faculty buy-in. Our faculty were initial, and then our student, finding a good core of popular students that bought into the concept, and then the parents just came along after we got the excitement of the faculty and the students involved. Those 3 were just essential, but that faculty buy-in and willingness to try something different, to embed classrooms next to your classroom that wasn't there before, and just having the kids come and go. The students really bought into it, and that was the biggest thing for us.
Thanks very much. I have another question for the principals, and that is, how have you engaged parents in your social inclusion efforts? I think you were hinting at that a bit, but let's give that one a chance too.
Well, I can. This is Steve, and at the high school level, I can tell you, I involve my parent-teacher organization as well as my site council. I always keep them in tune to what we're doing and how they can participate and how they help. And so I think just keeping them informed and then reaching out to them for some of the activities and events that are going on, for their support in putting on those events.
Yeah, and just to follow up what Steve was saying, the biggest change for me is that I've had parents of the children, of our exceptional children, come to us offering wonderful things to, plaques and support and this and that, because the difference in their child when they came into the school to where they are now is huge. I'll give you an example. We have 3 6th grade students this past year that were totally in self-contained classrooms in 5th grade. Within the first 6 weeks of school in 6th grade, I have all 3 of those students in at least an hour and a half a day in an inclusion classroom every day. And that kind of reaction to what we can do in school brings parents to us. And our regular ed parents want their kids to be involved with our students.
Thank you. Another question, and this is from Melissa. She says, in terms of resources, are there any existing efficient pre- and post surveys to gather data to begin?
I would start with a climate survey that we just did for you guys. I thought that was a pretty inclusive survey, and it opened our eyes a little bit.
And I would echo that. Last year, as a school, we participated in the National School Climate Survey, and just the results that gives you across the board about your community, your school, your kids, your staff, it gives you a great springboard to know where to begin.
Can anybody give her a little more specific information about where to find that survey?
This is Terry. We collaborate with the National School Climate Center, and they're the ones that worked with Steve and Bill and 8 other schools last year to create a socially inclusive index within a comprehensive school climate instrument, and that can be found at the National School Climate website, which is schoolclimate.org.
Thank you. Thank you. This will be the last question. Can a school successfully implement social inclusion without using Special Olympics Project Unify programming?
I would say, this is Steve, I would say absolutely yes, because we have so many different activities we do with all students outside of Special Olympics. With our best buddies, we do several activities with them. We do a prom. All of our homecoming events this week that are going on, all of our special needs students are going with, have been invited and are going to several of the events with regular ed students as partners and teaming. And so there are all kinds of ways you can involve kids outside of just the athletic Special Olympic aspect.
Yeah, I have to echo what Steve said. I definitely agree with that. We use that as a tool for celebration, really. That's one of our big celebration avenues for our students, and it's a great complementary tool for the other things we're doing in the school. Yeah, most certainly you can do these without Special Olympics, but I think it's a great tool to have in the toolbox, and we use it frequently.
Well, thank you all very much. I'd like to once again thank all of our presenters, Barbara, Terry, Bill, Steve. You've done a great job, and I've muted everybody because I was getting echo again. I don't know what our participants are getting, but I just wanted to say thank you and point out that I would be remiss as a former principal and a staff member at NASSP if I didn't point out the chunk of time these 2 principals took out of their days today to be with us. I know we're spread out all across the country and different things are happening in schools at this time of day, so thank you very much for that amount of time. The last slide is about resources, and I'll leave that up for just a moment while I give a little commercial for NASSP and the Elementary Principals Association, along with the Council for Exceptional Children. The 3 of us have recently published the 3rd edition of A Principal's Guide to Special Education, and it is available in all 3 of our stores on our websites. The NASSP website is simply nassp.org. If you're interested in that publication, you can find it there. If you are interested in any follow-up and want to send in questions later, feel free to send them to me at my email address, and I'll get them to the panelists. My email address is norij@nassp.org, and I will forward those on to our panelists. Thank you again. I want to thank everyone for being with us today, and we are just at 4:30.